I want to hear from the two of you about materialist critique, which is the sort of, vegan bread and gluten-free butter of our show, and how it is that as millennials in the gig economy, it is that, the two of you make it work for you. What do you do with it?
Yeah, Anne,
Is it fun?
is this constant sort of critical engagement with the culture around us actually just an extension of our workaholism?
Yes, but I don't know another way, right? Like this is like ever since I guess college, like just the idea that like, oh, there's something in front of me, I should think more about it. Like it was at the heart of media studies, it was at the heart of
Mm-hmm.
cultural studies, which I didn't know what cultural studies were until I got into college. But it was
Mm-hmm.
I had learned that in some way that like you read a book, you watch a movie, you look at a movie star, like what else do you want to think about in terms
Mm-hmm.
of that? Like what are they encouraging you to think about and interrogate in your world? And I also like I don't have a cultural studies mom or dad. Like they're scientists, they're mathematicians, but I think that what they think is like you ask questions, like
Mm-hmm.
something happens and you ask questions. Even I used to be very involved in the Presbyterian church, and like even that relationship was like you ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that like when someone, and oftentimes it was a student or it might be just like a reader who's like, isn't it exhausting
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
to always be thinking about these things? Or like what happens to your pleasure, right? Like can you watch a movie for fun? And I'm like, absolutely. Right? Like thinking is fun for me. I like it. And I just think that you can have those two things at once, right? Like I Laura Mulvey, the feminist theorist, famously said that like analysis essentially destroys pleasure. And she was talking about like male pleasure, the male gaze, and like how if you analyze the way that scopophilia, the pleasure in looking, works, then you can destroy some of that patriarchal pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
This is not that, right? Like I can look at something like athleisure and be like, huh, like every day I put it on and I think like something about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how is it that they're engendering this desire for more sports bras?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why did I resist the Viore jogger and now I have one? Like, what happened there? That's interesting, right? Like, all of that. What is going on with these weird words on this Lululemon bag? Um, yeah, it's just still like that's why I write. I've always written because I felt like there were words exploding out of me, and I know not every writer has that relationship with writing. Like the
Mm-hmm.
reason I started my newsletter was because there weren't enough opportunities for me to write about weird shit at BuzzFeed News. I was like, I have more things to say. I'll just keep writing this, right? Like, and I inadvertently, wrote myself into my own job, my own newsletter, being my own boss.
Mm.
So I like that I get to be my own boss now and write about only the things that I think are interesting, not the things that other people think are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through my head that whole time was that Simpsons line, iron helps us play. Just no, it's actually more fun when I work hard. But
Yeah.
I really relate to that framing of sort of critical cultural analysis of like
Mm-hmm.
it's a form of attention. And for
Yeah.
me, I think the best thing that we can do is pay attention. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different forms that attention takes. And one of the really challenging things, I think for a lot of us coming out of academia, but for lots of other folks as well, is to divorce uh, the process of paying attention from the necessity to produce something out of that attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm still trying to challenge myself to like have a thought and not turn it into a book.
Mm-hmm.
what,
Mm-hmm.
what if I just had a
Or
thought?
or to get paid for it, right? To understand that if I do decide to do that, that I could get paid for it, and I should get
Mm-hmm.
paid for it
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
fair, a fair way.
yeah,
That people will pay me money for it.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's also, deeply entwined with the idea of like, well, if I'm going to use some of my time to think, that might as well be profitable.
Mm.
Which is I have a different relationship
Well,
to it as a salaried academic, because then it's like
right.
every thought that I ever have is me
Yep.
putting in more hours for the institution.
Yep. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, no, it's complicated because like in that whole thing about getting paid too, it's me unlearning the idea that I should do work for free. But
Mm-hmm.
then at the same time, I don't only want to do work when I am compensated for it. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you do those things at the same time, right? How do you balance those compulsions? And I think for me, I've just had a lot of friends who have helped talk me through it and guide me through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I come back to this impossibility of living outside of ideology, right? This is,
Yeah.
it's Althusser who's
Yeah.
like, there is no outside to ideology. Like, we
Yeah.
can stand inside capitalism and critique it, and
Mm-hmm.
actually we need to. That's really, really vital. But we can't stand outside of capitalism and critique it. We're right in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're interpolated.
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 Oh no, Marcel, are you
We've been
interpolated?
I'm
interpolated.
absolutely interpolated. I feel guilty all the time. I definitely I'm very, very lazy. But I use the term lazy because I hate myself for it. Like I'm absolutely not outside of this ideology.